This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. The play No Exit by Jean-Paul Sartre opens with three characters sitting in a rather plain room. We have a journalist who fled the war and was accused of cowardice, a quite manipulative lesbian sadist, and a flirtatious gold digger. Now, the three don't initially know that they're dead, but within a few moments of irritating one another, they come to realise that they're in hell, and each person is the torturer to the other two. It is from this play that we get the famed but quite misunderstood quote, "Hell is other people." Now, contrary to the setup of the play, the quote doesn't relate to the irritation of other people's existence, but rather the torturous reality of being perceived through the eyes of others. You see, in death, each character is frozen in a narrative. They're unable to amend or adjust how others perceive them, unlike in life, where you can amend your ways in hopes of altering how people will interpret you. This unalterable atonement of perception that others have of us is the hell that Sartre speaks of. But unfortunately, it's not an experience confined to death. See, one of the ways that we form a perception of who we are is through perceptions others have of us. And the louder and more vocal people are about their perceptions and judgments, the more readily we absorb those perceptions about ourselves. Hell, for Sartre, is when we only see ourselves through the eyes of those who hate us, judge us, and perceive us, which explains the torture of lifelong low self-esteem etched into the minds of those who experienced verbal and mental abuse in life, whether that was from parents, classmates, partners, or colleagues at work. You see, in life, we will be entombed by the perception of others, and whether that's from a relative who may always see you through the same eyes they saw you with when you behaved as a naughty child or teenager, or the ex who will never not see you as a cheater who wasted years of her life even if you've only ever been loyal since to your new partner, or the parent who still sees you as a deadbeat and disappointment, even if you've gotten a job, earned loads of money and overcame all of your demons decades ago. And I think, honestly, Sartre would have had a field day with the internet and social media, because to me, people online and on social media are even more entombed by external perceptions, just as the three damned souls in Sartre's play. Judgments and perceptions, no matter how inaccurate they are, or even how atoned for they may have been, are near impossible to alter once they have been established online, leading to huge swathes of people who effectively act as judges and jurors, or metaphorical torturers as they would be in Sartre's play, attaching themselves to perceptions about other people, whether that be celebrities, television personalities, politicians, content creators, authors, or journalists, etc. Naturally, also, we live in an age where the effectiveness of social movements such as boycotting, protesting, and cancel culture are contentious, to say the least. But the long-term torture of never being able to escape the perceptions others have of them, whether that's from a response one received to a mortifying tweet from 10 years ago, or a controversial and unkind act, that is a form of judgment that very, very few can ever escape. You see, when we say hell is other people, it is not about misanthropy, but about the overwhelming torture of only experiencing your existence through someone else's mind. Now, this concept may also sound quite familiar for anyone in the psychology field, because we have a concept there called the looking glass self, which was coined by American sociologist Charles Horton Cooley, who wrote, quote, "As we see our face, figure and dress in the glass, and we are interested in them because they are ours, and pleased or otherwise with them according as they do or do not answer to what we should like them to be, so in the imagination we perceive another's mind, some thought of our appearance, manners, aims, deeds, character, friends, and so on, and are variously affected by it. The looking glass self has often been summarised as, I am not who I think I am. I am not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am." But before I go any further, I'd like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, which is Squarespace. So whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to time to courses, all in one place and all on your terms. I've gone through many iterations of my time on the internet, starting off as a book blogger and now running my own business, and Squarespace has actually seen all of these stages of my career. I can create workshops on my Squarespace website, so I can sell courses and I can host those on my website, which allows for members only content, so I can build a community over there, and I can sell online access to things like courses, blogs, or videos, or memberships, and purchases can be anything from a single one-time fee to a subscription service. And then when it comes to evolving my business, I can make smarter business decisions with Squarespace's intuitive built-in analytics tools, which lets me review my website traffic, learn where to focus my engagement, and track revenue from bookings, invoices, and product sales, again, all in one place. So if you're interested, please check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and then when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/lady of the library to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Now, the fear of being perceived is not actually unique to people with high profiles. Many people will rehearse conversations that they have in their heads, whether with a shop assistant, a friend, a partner they're about to break up with, etc. Also, there are millions of people who overthink what they will post on social media or text someone. Or there are people who come home feeling emotionally and physically exhausted after being around people for long stretches of time due to the energy expenditure of their perpetual internal surveillance of everything that comes out of their mouths. Being hyper aware of external judgments, perceptions, and interpretations is so exhausting and horrifying because it is a form of living in which one feels as though they do not have any control over who they are anymore. Because technically, they don't, because they have decided, usually unconsciously, that the reality of who they are is intrinsically tied to the perceptions other people have of them rather than perceptions they have of themselves. So when other people reduce you to a sentiment, a period of time in your life, a mistake, an error of judgment, a fault, an opinion, or a flaw, you become tortured by the reality that others only know you for one thing, and you don't have the ability to change that, because you cannot physically alter how their minds work. Then you have those who fear the perception others hold of them according to laws and social hierarchies. In his book, Frantz Fanon examines the effects racism has on the psyche. You see, Fanon discusses in depth the double consciousness and how colonised people become hyper-aware of how they are perceived by the dominant white culture, and explores the psychological impacts of feeling isolated from oneself as a colonised individual, and the internalised oppression of being defined by others and society rather than oneself. Similarly, in her text, The Second Sex, Simone de Beauvoir discusses how women are raised to see themselves through the eyes of others, especially men, resulting in constant self-monitoring, self-doubt, and a painful self-awareness of their bodies as objects of desire and vehicles for sexual reproduction. Now, despite the very varied issues between these philosophers, the idea that our self-construct is one which is formulated via interpreting and accepting external perceptions of ourselves by others is pretty consistent. Thus, it's pretty understandable that when faced with this reality, people feel hopeless and powerless. When one defines oneself by external perceptions, anyone in this world has the power to reduce an individual to absolutely nothing. And naturally, this colossal power other people have over one another makes many people terrified, and the fear of being perceived forces them to hide away. It makes them want to completely disappear, delete everything, become a hermit, and never interact with anyone ever again. I mean, after all, why try and exist when we have no control of how we will be perceived? If we don't like ourselves because our perception of ourselves is entirely defined by the negative perceptions of other people, then why would we want to live with ourselves anymore? Or why would we want to risk socialising with people when we can make a single mistake and forever be defined by those markers, which we more often than not have no control over afterwards, because people's minds are too fixed to think differently? Now, obviously, this actually technically isn't all negative. The need for external perceptions of ourselves and our awareness of the self being perceived by others is why a lot of us keep to the rules or perform a certain way. In his Being and Nothing, Sartre uses an example, I believe, of him peeking through a keyhole, and he imagines then someone walking in and seeing him peeking through a keyhole and having that horrifying moment of seeing himself via another person. A lot of us don't do things for fear of being seen by other people, and that's actually a good thing. When you're a child, you stopped picking your nose and eating it when you realise that your classmates are looking at you and defining you as the nose picker and eater. That extends itself to many other habits in life, whether that's behaving politely on a train or not taking your shoes off in public places, etc. So the idea that we do question our reality and perform a certain way based on how others would perceive us were we to act that way is a way of morally applying ourselves in a way that fits with society. But then it can become all-consuming when it becomes a paranoia. And I think the internet and social media has made that a far deeper fear for many more people. Though some people unfortunately skirt around that moral dilemma by being anonymous people on the internet and trolling people, but were they to be exposed, I doubt they would perform that same way. But if our self is being crippled and we are miserable, living in an eternal hell of how much we hate ourselves based on how other people perceive us, and that perception effectively working like a virus in our brains, making it painful to exist, what's the solution? Do we accept our hellish experience? Or do we adopt some kind of egocentric, dismissive personality and reject all external opinions and just accept that we can't change that, but it doesn't matter? Technically, I don't have an answer. And when I was reading about this and reading around it, I couldn't really see anyone responding to it. I would have to read more into shame, in all honesty. There is a book on the philosophy of shame, which I have got on my reading list ready to explore to see if it comes with a solution to this. But right now, whilst discussing the topic, I couldn't come up with a solution. Obviously, there is no solution, no exit, because that's the point. They are dead, they cannot change it, and that's why they're hellish experience. But I believe that many of us, myself included, live in that hell, and it makes us not want to be here. We don't want to post online, we don't want to enter local shops, we don't want to become a local, we don't want to contact friends, because we are so scared of how a single mistake or a miscommunication can result in us being permanently caught and captured in time and forever experienced that way. And when we don't like that self that has been captured in time from things that have been said in the past, when people tell you certain things about yourself, whether that's you're too stupid or you're too slow or you're lazy, and all these words become part of your psyche because it's so dominant by the external forces in which you grew up in and in which you were most developed and vulnerable, mentally speaking, then how on earth are you meant to overcome that? I suppose why I wanted to talk about this was to open up a dialogue with yourselves or anyone else interested in this topic, because I couldn't really find a solution. I couldn't present one in the video, and I certainly couldn't find an antidote to damage which has been done. If one has lived in a consistent hell in which their perception of themselves has been cemented by incredibly negative forces for a long period of time to the point that they don't want to go outside anymore, what is the antidote to that? It's certainly not praise, because we know from experience that people never listen to the positive praise, the feedback, or even accomplishments when they're in this place of hell. But there must be a desire of letting go. The idea that technically in No Exit, the three of them are still seeking external validation from one another is what drives it further forward. They are horrified by the response they get from their other tormentors or torturers, as it were. But they don't learn that to stop seeking the external validation is part of the solution and why they are there. But then how do we exist? External validation in of itself for a lot of people is part of parcel. When you're going out for dates and you want to meet someone who likes you, that is technically external validation. When you are making friends and your friends laugh at your jokes, that is seeking external validation. Our whole experience as a community, as a society, as humans relies on external validation. Whether that's love from a parent, praise from a teacher when you're a child, a good mark on an exam, or even a thank you when you hold the door open for someone. And I don't think it's incredibly easy. I have many books on my desk right now where I was trying to look through for chapters that may be beneficial to end this video with, and I didn't have any, quite frankly. I sort of felt myself losing over, and I really want a solution to it because I need one too, as much as other people who are looking at this video potentially hoping for it. But as I've been saying recently to my Patreons, my channel's more one of curiosity and where I'm at with my discussions. I'm not here to deliver answers unless when I find certain answers or when I find something useful. But I also want to pose questions to people and make them think. So I'd love to hear your responses, quite honestly, about this issue and whether or not there is a solution or an antidote to those who have been caught in the hell that is other people. i.e. the perceptions of others, and how does one free oneself from it when our system and societies rely so heavily on seeking external validation, even in minute ways. But thank you so much, as always, for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, as always, to my Patreons, including my librarians. We have Eric Taylor, Yvonne and Yvonne, Jenny Edivade, Marina, Psycho Teddy, Fritz Anderson, Wee Lauren, Nicholas Reed and Andrea Bazil. Thank you all so much for being so supportive. Thank you, as always, for liking, for sharing, for following, for subscribing. I really do appreciate everything that you do. And I will see you soon for another video. And remember, be happy and healthy, and books save lives. So keep reading.